So my name's Jose Villalba, and I am the Vice President for Diversity and Inclusion, as well as the Chief Diversity Officer, and I'm also a Professor of Counseling. That's actually what brought me here. There was a position in the Department of Counseling. I had been a professor at another couple of universities, and I had always wanted to, I don't know, just kind of see what other universities had to offer, and Wake was one of those that was appealing, and so I took a job offer and accepted it, and was a counseling professor for a couple of years, and then somehow found myself in the administrative capacities and roles, and ended up where I am right now, which is Vice President for Diversity and Inclusion. Sure. So there's a couple questions there. What is ODI and what are the resources that it offers? I think for me the best way to answer what ODI is what it does. ODI offers programming, it influences policy, and it elevates practice. It offers programming through our three identity centers: the Intercultural Center, which has been around for 40 years in some way, shape, or form; the LGBTQ Plus Center, which has celebrated its 8th year anniversary; and also the Women's Center, which has celebrated its 5th year anniversary. Together, these three centers provide a variety of affinity group programming, monthly programs, weekly workshops, working with outside speakers and events. And really, they provide a home, if you will, away from home for a lot of our students, whether or not they identify with that particular affinity group. The policy and the practice side is a little harder to see, but I can tell you that everything from our gender-neutral bathrooms on campus to our housing selection process has been influenced in some way, shape, or form by ODI. The practice part for me is what really excites me the most. It's how we as an institution show up in a way that is more equitable, that is more inclusive. And a lot of that is around programs for faculty and staff on multicultural competence. During New Student Orientation Week, we offer 2 actual unique programs, one for the entire incoming class and one per residence hall wing. And so in those particular regards, we really want to make sure that students are practicing and faculty and staff are practicing an inclusive and equitable way of being a part of the community. In terms of resources, I do think that aside from the programming we've offered or that I presented, ODI also offers whether it is funds for professional development. Sometimes if a student is having trouble fulfilling all of those textbook requirements that are expected of them, then typically some of our centers in the ODI can assist with those resources as well. Making new friends here, building community, is an act in self-awareness. And what I mean by that is you really got to know who you are. What are you into? What are your interests? What don't you like? What would you rather not be doing? The more self-aware you are, the more in touch with your own skills and abilities, and again, interests you're in, the better chances you're going to have of finding your people. You hear a lot of folks on campus, particularly first-year students, talk about finding their people. If you are a person who identifies strongly with any of their personality or cultural identity traits, whether it's based on religion or whether it's based on race or ethnicity or first language acquisition or what have you, chances are that you'll find, quote unquote, your people in the identity centers that we've mentioned. The neat thing about ODI, though, is all of our programming is open for everyone. So for example, in September every year we host the World Cultural Fest. We basically take over the lower quad and bring in dancers and arts and crafts and food and more food from all over the world. And it doesn't matter whether or not you identify with whatever's being served that day or whatever flags are on the quad. It's really a chance for folks to come together. For me, that is probably one of the first places I would go if I were a first-year student, to find my people, to find my group. Other than that, keep it in mind that your classrooms and your halls are a really great place to start making community. Chances are, if you are in a first-year seminar, you are in there because that is where you wanted to be or that's where you were hoping to be, and other students are probably in there for the same reason. So your first-year seminars are also a good place to find your people. And then last but not least, the residence halls that I mentioned. We have this wonderful program called the Faculty Fellows Program, where there are 3 to 4 faculty or staff fellows who make up part of the programming in a particular hall, first-year residence hall. I would go to those as much as possible. Now, in full disclosure, I was a faculty fellow many years ago. I was the faculty fellow in Collins Hall, and I was the inaugural faculty fellow along with two other colleagues. We loved doing that. Loved making faculty less scary, if you will. And the kids that would come, the students that would come, really enjoyed meeting a professor and meeting students from around the hall that maybe they didn't know, to talk about things that were pretty innocuous and community building. So I would encourage you to do all of those things. So, you know, being a student on this campus who honors and who cherishes and who lives your identity can mean many things to different people. I identify as Latinx, Latino, Cuban on my mom's side, Colombian on my dad's side. And so for me, being Latin is something that's important to me. And so for me on this campus, it's actually encouraging to walk around and see so many Latinx faculty, staff, and students. For some students, it's harder than others, right? I think the smaller your group or the more intersectionalities you have, the harder it is to find your people on this campus or on, frankly, on any college campus. What I do find encouraging from our student body is if you are from an underrepresented group, chances are you're going to find fellowship and community with other students from other underrepresented groups, even if they don't share your quote unquote same identity. And so you might hit it off with students from a different religious group than you are, and not because you have nothing in common, but because you're equally passionate about your own religious identity, right? And so you find yourself drawn to not only where you congregate on a Sunday, for example, but maybe where you might congregate on a Friday night for Shabbat, right? So I think it's one of those things that on a place like Wake, you might have to look for it a little bit. It may not be apparent that your group or your people are here, but it doesn't take much for you to find a connection or two to the groups that you're trying to look for and the connections that you're trying to flourish. Getting support for transitioning to college is something that every person on our campus, whether they be a student or a staff or faculty member, can relate to. Now, for those of us that are older and have a few more gray hairs, it may be harder to remember what it was like to struggle in that transition. But it doesn't take much for us to remember how scary, how anxious, how overwhelming it would seem. And I think knowing that there are many, many people here who can relate to you, whether they're a sophomore or a senior or a vice president for diversity and inclusion, helps you understand that you're not alone. I referenced that counseling degree earlier when we were doing some other questions, and I lean real heavily on my counseling background because I think it's important for you to know that it's okay to ask for help. As a matter of fact, it's probably one of the smartest things you can do is to ask for help. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling tense or stressed, and that transition is making you either feel or even physically is making you change, is worrying you, then seek help out, whether it is from your RA, your residence assistant, whether it's from your faculty member. We have an incredible counseling center, the University Counseling Center. We have an incredible Learning Assistance Center and Disability Services group. We have all of these folks on campus that are here to help you out. One of the things that I often tell groups of students and their parents, if I'm ever privileged enough to be, or when I'm privileged enough to be in front of them, is to don't forget that you didn't get to where you are right now all by yourself. You've either been asking for help all of these years or people have been volunteering their assistance. So now would be the worst time to think that you can actually go it alone. If you've not gone it alone up until now, why start something like that? So if you're worried about transitioning, if you're worrying about what it is you can do, by all means, come by any of our centers, come by my office in Reynolda Hall, and or seek out folks that you know might be helpful. Either it's in their title or they share something that you might also believe in or feel strongly about, and seek out that assistance. It may not be a big deal to them, but it's going to be a big deal to you, and you should follow up on that. So I'm sure you have tons of questions and or questions might pop up later that you don't have right now. If you do, I've got one website that I really need you to remember: diversity.wfu.edu. That is the ODI homepage, and it connects you not only to our office, but the 3 centers that I mentioned, in addition to what I would call affiliate partners on campus, whether it's the chaplain's office or whether it's the counseling center that I already referenced, or a variety of other folks on campus. I would highly encourage you to seek out that web source, to seek out any of us who are on that website, and let us help you make the most of the next 4 years on our campus and as a member of our Wake Forest community. Go Deeks!